kill you.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Zaku Talk. This season, G versus Wing, and I am your host, Patrick Skeyhill, and of course, my co-host this season is the Rubber Band Man.
Blah, scale, wee.
Yeah, seems fine. And of course, on the audio boards is Lev Van Rensselaer. This week, we're doing episode 27 of G, Gundam, and Gundam Wing. But before we get into that, Bob, how's your week been? What are you doing to prep for the new year?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So the past week, I definitely sat down, spoke with my wife, tried to get a little more together. I've had it for a few weeks now, but I have this new 2021 organizer that is easier for me to use than the method I'd been using, because I can actually open it up on its binding and have everything open in front of me at the same damn time.
Okay.
I've made a list of things that I keep putting to the back of my head as things to do that have been stacking up in my brain. So now everything feels equally important. So instead, by putting them all in a finite list, I can actually try to like cross things off as I get to them and organize them in a list of like, what do I need to do this fucking second? But that includes, at the moment, getting the final touches on Prisma Paladins for the full release as opposed to the partial release I did last month. And I'm talking with a voice actor to try and keep myself bolstered up and pressing forward, because it's a lot easier to have what I call, after hearing it from other people, an accountability buddy. Yeah, it sounds as awful as anything, but realistically, to have somebody that you can hold yourself accountable to, that will hold you to task, very much like what the point of this podcast is, before I even have to pretend like I didn't know at the end of it. It is good to be able to have somebody that can hold your feet to the fire when they need to, and to be there to help you when you don't know what the hell you're doing.
All right, sounds like you're ready to go into the new year with some new plans for action. I like it. We sort of have a shorter week here because of our late recording last week, so not much new has changed. Still going over storyboards with the crew now on this animation, still writing a script for the feature next year. Nothing too exciting after that. No real New Year plans, I don't think, for me. I'm in quarantine.
Yeah, no, I don't think that any of us have any real New Year's plans. It's not like I ever went to first night or anything. Here in Massachusetts, there's a thing that people like to do in Boston called First Night, where they go out for New Year's Eve. And rather than the New York City rockin' New Year's Eve with the ghost of, oh God, who is the
Dick Clark
person that got replaced by Carson Daly after the fact? It's something Clark. Dick Clark.
Yeah.
It's been so long. But yeah, no, we just hang out. We treat it like any other day. But a little more special because the 31st of December is actually my wedding anniversary.
Yes. So any plans to celebrate that?
Might order from the same pizza place that we got pizza for our wedding day. The mother of the bride, my mother-in-law, she got pizza from a place that was still open that day. And that was our replacement for cake at the time, until one of her friends came by with an actual cake.
Well, I think the first anniversary is the pizza anniversary, so that seems very fitting.
When I was talking with my friend that I normally talk to on these days, I brought up the fact that years ago, back when you were still on this coast with me.
Yes, a wee lad I was.
A wee lad. You had been with an individual you had been romancing. And that person snapped at me because I tried to say that that year was the year of change. And I say that every year. And I didn't want to lose my shit because it was explosive and it was someone that you cared about. So I didn't want to get into a confrontation with someone you give a shit about. But I always think that each year, it doesn't have to be 2021 leaving this supposed hell year, but every year that we leave is a hell year based on what everybody says at this point in our lives. Every year is a year of change. When we leave in the next day or so, we're going to leave a whole year behind, positive and negative, and we're going to go into a new year, positive and negative. It's up to us to decide how we're going to start that. And I rather start it off on the foot of feeling like there's a wide world of change instead of fuck.
Okay. I mean, you have sort of that power kind of every day. You don't need a giant milestone to do that, right?
No, but I think that's the average mentality. And I truly am using the word average here, like split across the board. Yeah, there's plenty of like self-help individuals or, you know, people who are type A mentalities, of which I think you are strongly a type A mentality, that go into each and every day like this is a brand new rebirth and this is the day that I will rise like the phoenix I am and conquer everything that gets in front of me. But for a lot of other people, it's just, how do I do? End sentence there with question mark. People have trouble trying to figure out what they're doing. So when big milestones come up, whether that's your wedding anniversary, your birthday, or in this case, a new year, it is a lot easier to qualify that because we've been conditioned to qualify big moments.
I actually think I'm cutting all this out, but I actually think that I'm type B, and that wasn't working for me. So I've had to learn some type A things. And one of those things was actually studying this Austronesian culture where they believe that every day your soul dies and a new one grows in you. So you're never really the same person between days, and that sort of felt like it gives them like this extraordinary freedom to not be weighed down by their past, but to have each of their days kind of matter and allow for the affectation of change upon their lives.
Lev, don't cut this out because this is going to be a short episode anyway. This has been a good way to rein in the new year because it's a clip show unto itself.
Clip show.
Sorry for the clip show. Have no fears, we got stories for years.
Clip show, much like Gundam Wing this week, it was a clip show.
Staple of the 80s, the clip show. Staple.
Yeah.
Sitcom.
Staples.
Nonsense. All right. Well, so Bob, in your show already got to have its recap episode, so why don't you give us an actual plot summary for this week, for episode 27, right?
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago, but yeah, I'll make this episode equally as important as last episode. Hang on, Domon. Triumph of the Restored Faith, or in Japanese, Ganbare Domon. Tomo ni sasageta dai shori. The literal translation of which is Ganbare, hang on, or you can do it, Domon. Tomo ni sasageta dai shori. Well, shori actually comes up in the title of your thing as well.
True. So
shori means triumph or victory. Mm-hmm. And then ni dai. Die is big, so I'm going to go on a limb with where sasageta translates to lift up, to offer, to sacrifice, consecrate. So yeah, that is restore is what I'm going to say there.
Okay.
Sasageta is the restored part, and rather than going and looking around, I'm going to go ahead and say Tomo is faith. Now to the actual summary. Domon is about to face off against Cobra Gundam of Neo, India. The pilot of Cobra Gundam has no qualms about hurting Domon before the match. A group of kids follows Domon to his God Gundam, and the Cobra Gundam pilot helps one of them sneak into the God Gundam in an attempt to sabotage Domon and the God Gundam. Domon saves the kid, but dislocates his shoulder in the process. During the fight against the Cobra Gundam, Domon is in pain because he is constantly being attacked on his injured shoulder. Cobra Gundam wraps tightly around Domon, but at the last minute, he dislocates his shoulder, breaking free. He then finishes off the Cobra Gundam with his erupting Godfinger. There were a couple things wrong with that summary, and I will go over that shortly. But
okay.
What about you, Skeyhill? Can you tell us about episode 27 of Gundam Wing?
I can, but first I'll give you its title, The Locus of Victory and Defeat, or in the Japanese, Shori to Haiboku no Kiseki. I'm imagining the Shori.
Kiseki.
Yeah, I'm imagining the Shori to Haikobu is victory and defeat. Is that true?
So no, Shori is victory. Haiboku is defeat.
Yeah.
Which is why we have the toe there.
The hand.
Victory is Shori. Toe is the particle for effectively and.
Yeah.
Haiboku is defeat. No Kiseki. Kiseki here is miracle in a direct translation. So even though when I put the whole title into the Japanese to English translator, it chose to call it trajectory, I think locus is fair enough here for the same idea as miracle without it being too over the top.
Well, and I think it gets that sense of trajectory, locus, and or colors the word locus a little better, where it's a more active kind of noun than it would be if you were just a native English speaker.
Certainly.
But here's the summary of The Locus of Victory and Defeat. It is a recap episode from the point of view of Relina and Hero. The end. That is all that happens. Yeah. But we won't talk about that show at the moment. Let's talk about a show where stuff actually happened. This episode here. Now, I remembered him fighting a big snake man Gundam. What I do not remember is that this, Snake Man pilot was in fact green. Why do you think they made him green?
So, couple of things. One, they really went ape shit with trying to do all these over the top things for our Neo India Gundam pilot, especially as apparently also a contortionist, has an electronic recorder strapped to his neck that is also somehow a shiv, has a giant cobra as a pet. So he uses his pet cobra, I'm going to say he does, even though it doesn't have the suit thing on it, to act as his slither tail thing.
It seems to be so.
Yeah, even though it doesn't have the suit on, and I keep saying that because when we do eventually see Funsaiki in real life, when he's in the Gundam, he has a Gundam suit on.
Yeah, missed opportunity not to put the snake in a mobile fighter condom. Like that is a waste, I feel.
I agree. But they went over the top with so much of that. Yeah. I'm sorry, go on.
Especially since we drew so much attention to the putting on of the suit in the episode. Like we made it a big plot point. So put the snake in one too. Let's have some fun here.
Yeah. So I also want to point out something that was in the Gundam Wikipedia thing here.
Okay.
It says that the Cobra Gundam pilot helps one of these kids sneak into the place. He does not.
I did not see that.
It is something that Domon tries to infer to Chan, the kid who is the little shit throughout the entire episode.
Wait. What did you call him? What is the kid's name?
So in my show, they called him Chan.
Interesting. In my show, they called him Cha.
Yeah, that's probably because they didn't want to seem like there was overt racism or something like that. They called him Chan because Chan is a name that you would hear in Hong Kong.
Jackie Chan.
Also, Neo Hong Kong dollars came up.
Yeah, I know.
I wanted to make sure I said that.
Great. That will be this many Neo Hong Kong dollars, please. Oh, okay, that's
500 Neo Hong Kong dollars. It was, a return to your favorite. It wasn't even like Neo francs because francs are the currency in France.
Well, I'm fine with that.
It's just Hong Kong dollars. Like, do you call
the dollars of Hong Kong?
Sure, I'll fucking bite.
Is that how they is that the Japanese too? Is they say Hong Kong dollars?
I don't know if that's what they said phonetically, but I know that's what came up in the subs.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, Yeah, no, we get to see 3 little freaking Gundam otaku.
Yeah, the weebs. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not weebs. I would say that. I mean, would you call a person who's all about their favorite football team, who study their stats and everything, football weebs?
I wish we had a term for that because it needs one. These sports weebs, I would like them to have a term. Speebs?
I know I might have one for you.
Yeah, okay.
Because Patton Oswalt starred in a film that dealt with something like this.
Yeah, big fan. I remember that movie.
Yeah.
Great movie.
It was called Big Fan?
Yeah, big fan. Mm-hmm.
Okay. For whatever reason, my head was stuck as Super Fan.
You're close.
Yeah. But I think that's also because of watching I Know That Voice, a voiceover documentary where John DiMaggio kept referring to all the people that would come to the cons as super fans.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's probably where I got that.
Makes sense.
Anyway, ADHD mind aside.
Sure.
So you have these 3 kids who go onto an active, destructible building next to 2 Gundams. Just look up at it in awe. Our kid, I'm going to keep referring to him as Chan here,
fine.
Nearly gets too close to the railings of this dilapidated building just so he can get a little closer look at the Gundam Maxter as it deals with the Zebra Gundam.
Yeah, Zebra Gundam also goes out like a bitch. Zebra Gundam, Bull Gundam, and for the fun of it, Windmill Gundam once again.
Yeah.
All getting their asses handed to them.
Well, remember, as we said a few episodes ago, we know that a Gundam can keep coming in during this tournament and can be repaired as many times as necessary. That's why they're doing a point system. They say when Nether Gundam gets knocked out again, that's 2 points for Neo France.
Yeah, I'm glad they finally explained that to me. Also, I had thought the Windmill Gundam got completely destroyed against the Zeus Man, but I guess I misremembered that.
No, it was Zeus Man that got completely destroyed by God Gundam.
So, all right, so Domon doesn't hold back. Zeus Gundam, a little more restraint.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But Windmill Gundam doesn't matter. I don't know. You start off 0-2. Your chances of winning probably aren't great at this point.
They are not.
No.
Also, I don't think most people think of the Netherlands, like Holland or anything, as being terribly war-forged.
They're known for their martial
having any
prowess.
strong martial art in particular. So compared to, like, even if Japan did not have our current Gary Stu Domonkashu, they have a long history of a wide variety of martial arts, not just, oh, wow, karate.
Correct.
It's not just that. They have judo. They have aikido. They have a bunch of different ones based on different weapon styles. They truly have so many different kinds of martial art. And, you know, America has plenty between things like boxing and, you know, the amalgamatory versions of different martial arts that we've taken from other countries because we're colonialist bullshit. We have a bunch of martial arts that we practice here in the States, you know, so on and so forth with our 5 from our Shuffle Alliance. But when I think of Holland, I think windmills. And that's it. So
and dikes,
yeah, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for Swiss chocolate from the Swedes.
Yeah,
give it up for the Swedes.
Where's that Gundam?
You know, I think that Gundam was repurposed as a chocolate factory.
It just looks like a giant Saint Bernard.
I'm gonna skip right ahead to the end after dipshit Chan screws up Domon's shoulder, which again, another mistake. They say he dislocated it. He definitely hurt it pretty bad, but I don't like them saying he dislocated it, which is probably true. But then to further dislocate it during the fight, and I have a whole fucking thing about that.
Well, yeah, I guess for me, the implication is that he hurts it somehow, and then he does the dislocating during the fight. Like that was what happened in my mind.
But anyway, I digress. Yeah, we have a green-skinned assassin-y type who is trying to actively harm, if not straight up kill Domon before their match, which starts to show that there may be something even more sinister at hand beyond what we might have thought was just going to be a series of harder Gundam matches.
I mean, I don't really get that from here per se. I guess, later on I could look back and be like, okay. But right now he just seems like one of these guys that wants to win at any cost. He sneaks Domon lures him back into the alley and wants to kind of gain whatever advantage he can.
Spoiler, next episode, there's also an assassin.
Of course. Thank God they made him green, so that way I know he has a snake theme going on, because I wouldn't have gathered that any other way in the episode.
Well, yeah, especially because I also want to note that we already had somebody who appeared to be what I would have considered Neo India's rep when we had the Shuffle Alliance.
That is true.
We had several different people who were very indicative of different nations, with the exception of maybe Black Joker. Her Gundam and her way of holding herself didn't really denote any particular nation to me. Mm-hmm. But we did have this individual who was dressed up and built in a way that one could infer India. It could be any Middle Eastern place, so I don't want to sound like I'm overly generalizing. But at least he appeared to be an Indian individual compared to this green snake man that looks like he was more supposed to be a ripoff of Tales from the Crypt Keeper animation.
When he appears in this alleyway with the big snake, I really expected the snake to be like a metaphor for something, or like this visual illusion.
I expected it to be an animatronic.
And then you always go to robots. You're always like robots. I thought like he was like this snake is letting me know this guy is sneaky, and he's gonna poison Domon maybe somehow to affect him later in the battle. And then no, just an actual snake that wraps around Domon, and some kids think that he's now like a wuss because he got body checked by a giant cobra. I don't know. I'd cut the man some slack.
The fact that he survived such a thing.
Yeah.
Is reason to give credence to him. But I'm going to just point out, Scale, you make fun of the fact that I think that the snake could have been an animatronic, a robot, in a robot series. And in fact, it would be even more sense in this Super Robo series than, say, in a real Robo series, because at least in the real Robo series, it wouldn't look as lifelike.
What wouldn't look as like the giant snake?
It would at least explain why it is much larger than the Cobra can grow. I would have bought Anaconda if we were trying to talk about something that big. Totally cool with that. But because we're trying to stay to the theme of the sneak charming Cobra theme that they chose to do for Neo India, because we're just choosing things that are easy sites, and it's the 90s. So we're just going to say that every place has like 2 or 3 big flashy flags, and we're going to go for those.
Well, I guess
there's no Cobra that grows to be the size of a man and then some.
Yeah, but Bob, we're in a world where they're street fighting each other with magic power. It doesn't cross my mind that there has to be a reason why the snake is gigantic. It's just G Gundam doing wacky things, and you wouldn't want this guy attacking with a regular looking Cobra. That wouldn't be flashy or cool. It needs to be a giant Cobra.
Okay, I get where you're coming from, and it's not so much that I have a qualm with the giant Cobra existing as much as I hold a suspension of disbelief when we state that this world has a specific technology or whatever that is being applied, right? So far, all the natural stuff has not appeared to be different in any way. We don't have any animal hybrids running around. We don't have any corgis that have genius level IQs or anything like that, because we have not established that at any point. And we are at the halfway point in the series. If this is where they're going to start incorporating that, fine. I just would hope that it would be more than one instance. I guess I'll buy it because we have a horse piloting a Gundam. But even still.
Yeah, but Bob, they're kicking like lightning beams at each other. There's nothing technological about that. There's no reason to think the natural world is natural. I don't know. Like I like Gundam. G Gundam
I feel like this is more nitpick on your part than mine.
It's not a nitpick. G Gundam. This is what I've been annoyed about all the series. And you're like, Pat, this is not what they're trying to do. And I've acknowledged the fact that G Gundam has the luxury of not having to try as hard because it's not interested in the world building and it's not interested in your suspension of disbelief.
I did not remember this episode existed. Okay.
Okay.
So I might just be having my boxers in a twist.
Okay.
As we're talking about this. Because this is one of the more absurd episodes in the series.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I'm on board with it. Like, if this is what G Gundam's doing, fine. Because, like, I can sort of strap myself in and be like, okay, G Gundam wants to be weird and ridiculous and flashy. Here we are. Let's do it. Let's own it. And so, like, he has a snake in his pit, and the snake robot also snake charms itself, maybe? I don't know. Who cares? Stop thinking about it. Just why does Fat have a giant chessboard with robot pieces when he could just do this on a computer screen? Who cares? It's flashy and he looks like a bad guy when he does it. Okay. That's fine. Fair. But here's what actually
I don't know. I guess for the medium that we're in, the giant chessboard somehow makes more sense to me because we're already doing these big, flashy, over-the-top visuals in that regard. In terms of man-made things, that makes sense to me. But because we're starting to bring in overly large critters into it, especially where there's question of how well people actually live on the planet, I think that's why I'm such a stickler for it at the moment.
Yeah, I guess it's fine. It feels like you're the one nitpicking. But like, if we're in a show where the theme is like, mankind has polluted and destroyed the earth, I don't know. Giant snakes probably came out of that. Like, look at this monstrosity wrought by our hands.
That fine. I can buy. You know what? With that mentality, I'll get off my high horse about this.
Your high Funsubi. What's his horse's name?
Funsaiki.
Yeah. So. Why is Domo? I already forget. Why is Domo living with these other people and not staying at the hotel with Carrot and company?
I think he feels cooped up and doesn't have the opportunity to live the kind of lifestyle that he did prior to all this. When this whole thing started, if we remember all the way back to episode 6, that time that he finally came back to Neo Japan was the first time in a decade or so, maybe 12 years, since he lived in actual living world. Yeah. In modern society. He got used to living the ascetic lifestyle. So to live on a fishing boat is probably more comfortable to him than staying at a ritzy hotel where he wouldn't be able to train as easily, to be able to breathe the air and be a part of the world around him.
Okay, I got you there. The little girl that he's staying with, her English voice actress, or the voice that was chosen for this little girl, is awful. Terrible. But other than that, everybody else is fine talking around in this episode. I like.
What does the little girl sound like?
I don't know, middle-aged Jewish lady. I don't like. It's just a really terrible attempt at trying to sound like a little girl.
So it sounds like Fran Drescher is talking through a 3-year-old.
Yeah, that might be too strong. I don't like all the other little kids. I buy that they're little kids, at least in the way that we do them in animation. But this little girl, is just awful and droning and terrible. Everybody else is fine. Of the 8 kids we ran into this episode, everybody else was fine. Just this little girl wasn't a fan of. I like that Domo's back on the boat, and he's just like, I can't believe I got attacked when I was out in public. To which the real translation is, I didn't expect to be attacked when I went looking for trouble in a back alley. And that's really what happened there. Other than that, fine. Like I said, this is sort of what I wanted. I normally have trouble with kids. In kind of all formats, because we either make them like too adult when they shouldn't be, or they're like really, really awful because they're trying to make them be like kids and kids are awful. This one, they're a little annoying, but like I buy, like it's annoying, I buy. Like, of course you're going to be assholes. What are you, 8, 10? You're all assholes at that age. So like, I get it. But then Domon is just like friends with him at the end. And then Rain at the end just like, Domon's got some really great friends, in parentheses, that he's known for one day. Very fun.
That are literally less than 8 years old.
Domon's really good at making friends with children. If this were the real world, we would all eye these friendships with great suspicion and worry what he's doing with them in private rooms. But in this show, perfectly fine. This round 2 looks like everybody moved to this mountainy battlefield. Are we going to keep kind of changing arenas from round to round?
You know, it seems like it's different settings each time now, if we maintain this, because the first round we had our traditional, as I griped last week, our grid space fighting arena, right?
The basic bitch of fighting arenas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right by the sea. This time we had some sort of a craggy space, but I do think that they change up the scenery each time. So like, I think that we're going to see a fight in a faux city or a cordoned off part of the city that has been okayed for demolition or whatever.
Okay. Sounds good.
I mean, again, literally the beginning of the episode, that's what Gundam Maxter was doing with Zebra Gundam.
Yeah, that's true.
Or, you know, it'll be like in some sort of a cavern or something like that. I will not be surprised if we have different settings because, again, this is very much a spectacle at the moment.
Yes.
Like, regardless of what we've been doing in the show so far, this whole fight thing is a spectacle because it's effectively the Olympics meets the U.S. presidential race.
Yeah. Other than that, fine with the episode. You know, these are the episodes of G Gundam that I get, that I'm in for, that I'm okay with. So no real complaints. Does what I expected. The end.
Okay. Other than the few things that I aired, I do want to point out one more thing about this episode that really did blow my mind.
Yeah.
Besides the electric recorder situation.
Sure.
Because it was used everywhere.
Yeah, it was definitely used a lot. Domon also empowered by apologies. That's how he kind of defeats his enemy.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I actually have two things.
Oh, okay,
the
great.
First, the more important one, the thing that I just remembered, I am willing to buy that the suit that they wear, the tension suit, is something that can read the musculature of the body and everything else. And I'm even willing to take into consideration like the output of energy in the case of having Domon go into his serene state or whatever. I'll buy it.
Okay.
I don't know how the suit was able to read him dislocating his shoulder from the joint and how that read to the skeleton of the robot, the skeleton of the Gundam, to dislodge its arm from its socket to make that work. I would believe that, again, this is a big nitpick that is mostly for the fact that I've been having to reframe my mind for your real Robo.
Okay.
And so that's definitely affecting my ability to suspend my disbelief now compared to earlier when we were first starting this.
Yeah.
But to see an active dislocation of the joint in the robot and to see it happen as quickly as it does by pop and then see like the joint thing be like this shaft that goes, and it's not like a connection that is like a ball joint or something. It's a shaft length, and then it drops down to allow for the whole struggle out. It didn't sit right with me because of everything that we have seen and come to understand of the suits at this point. I don't care about it from this point forward. It's really not that big a deal, but it is something that stuck with me.
Yeah, that's interesting you're having trouble with it because for me as an outsider, I've never been able to justify the suit working and buying it. So my way of accepting the show on its own terms is just being like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It does whatever. It does anything. So like when it does it, I go like, okay. I have to sort of buy it all if I'm going to buy it at all. So it feels weird to nitpick.
Wild. This is so wild that we have such a different handle on this at this point than we did at the beginning of the series. I was having to fight every moment when something kind of bizarre happened.
Yeah.
And now I'm fighting myself where you're over there like, yeah, no, this is bullshit. And now it's like, yeah, no, that.
Well, like because legit. It's all bullshit. like, I say fine. Like, my hands are up and I'm just like, okay, you do whatever you need to do. Just the fact that the suit exists and works in a way at all, I have to accept, like, everything else that comes with it, including reading bones. So fine. Like, I don't know. Like, I already crossed that threshold in these episodes with you. You brought me across. You've taught me the grammar. And the grammar tells me dislocated suits, bone suits, fine. Giant snakes, fine. It's all fair game. So fine. Like, I don't know.
Fair.
I'm okay with it.
Fair. And the other thing was just we have these 3 kids that are apparently huge nerds for Gundam fights.
Yeah.
But somehow don't know how the suits work. Insofar as like the tension suit thing. I feel like that would be... Of all the things that you teach to a kid, you always teach them the baseline things when they're young. You would think that when they're having their stat books open or whatever, like the tall, nerdy one would have said something to Chan. Hey, do you think you're strong enough to actually deal with an elastic suit going over your body? I'm still going to say that he would have done it anyway because he's a dipshit and thought that, you know, a man getting crushed by a giant cobra was weak ass baby sauce.
Yeah.
Because I could have handled that. If he's too weak to handle being crushed by a giant muscle, then, you know, I could pilot the Gundam better than he could. Meanwhile, has trouble going into a body size condom.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, one, it sort of gave information about how the suit works and like how sort of, I don't know, form-fitting and tough and restrictive it is on you to be able to get those readings. So you get a little bit of flavor in there, which I'm fine with. But I don't think any 10-year-old is having that kind of thought of just like, hey, do you think you could handle wearing the suit? I think they look at how a 10-year-old in America would look at a football player or a hockey player and be like, yeah, I put on some pads and I beat the shit out of those guys. And they don't realize that when you get hit, it hurts a lot. So they just see these articles of like people in suits fighting and posing and you're like, that's badass. And don't realize, oh shit, it actually hurts a lot when you're in there. Like it's this thing you take for granted. I don't know. It's a higher level thinking that a prepubescent person I just don't think would have. So I buy it.
Certainly.
They're just being jerks. Whatever. They're 10. That's what 10-year-old
No, and that's
kids
fine.
are
And
jerks.
I wanted to point it out that I definitely laughed haha to myself.
Yeah.
During the course of that, like, you dumb bitch.
Yeah. Well, he's learned a lesson here. This is how the kids learn. They get their ass
It took
kicked.
nearly a full day for him to admit to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my fault. Yeah, I wasn't being hypnotized by this snake man. And I just don't want you to die because I goofed up. So win, so that way I don't have to feel bad.
Yeah, win. And Dumb was like, oh shit, well, I was planning on losing this, even though Rain's been yelling at me to win. So, but like,
because
you know what?
I said that thing like 3 days ago where I was going to sweep.
And but you apologized to me. So you know what? I found the inner strength to win because I'm not going to give up.
Just for you, Chan.
Thanks for
if
you.
That's your name.
Kid, I don't know it all. You've got this. It's fine. It's G Gundam. It's fine.
Okay, now I'm done with G Gundam. Let's talk about Gundam Wing. It was a clip show at the end.
The end. Well, so yes, but not great. And I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off right now. Next week, also clip show. But
I figured.
Next week, try to pay attention because there are little things thrown in and we're following different people. It's not really an hero anymore. It's other people now telling us. The clip show, when I show this to other people, I usually skip this one. But I have people watch the other one because there are bonus bits to be thrown in there. So
sure. I'm not going to check out every time. I watched the whole thing.
I mean, but I wouldn't blame you if you checked out after 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and you were like, okay, I see where this is going. Because there really isn't much there to hold. There's a couple of things I want to talk about, not so much in what they revealed, but in like what to look for going forward. But like the next one, you get actual interesting things kind of in between the clips. So I think it's definitely one worth watching and trying to pay attention to because you could come into it and be like, oh, yay, another one of these. And zone out and you might miss some fun things. So try to pay some attention there. As for this episode, one, great to see Relena and Noin again, even if it's only in clip shows. 2, we get a hint that Relena is taking up the mantle of ruler of the Sank Kingdom. And that's what she's been up to since we left her at Antarctica. Is she's gone back to the nation of her birth and has taken her rightful place on the throne, and we'll see what that has manifested into when we come back from the clip shows. 2, kind of looking back and watching Hiro and Relena's early reactions, you see some interesting things where, like, Hiro seems kind of mollified by her presence or surprised by her presence. I want you to think as the show goes through the second half, why that might have happened in those moments. What is it about Relina that is sort of making Hiro less, different from what he normally is and is expecting? What's about her is throwing him off his game? So just some things to kind of keep in mind as we go forward there. At
first I was like that, but then I started to write it off because of the way that he was handling himself as not understanding how a positive emotion works. I feel like Hiro has been having trouble displaying any level of gratitude, or any kind of positive emotion. Everything has been either something stoic, negative, or at his best, snarky. So I am curious to see something that is genuine positivity.
Yeah. Something made him leave the Zero system and see that vision of Relina and want to return to her, that we see little hints of that we're reminded of in these clips here. And so just kind of pay attention to what that could be, what is actually going on in their relationships. And it might not be an answer that you fully get. It might not be something you get to fully solve until we get to the movie, but you could get pretty close with what the show provides. Well, yeah, other than that, it's a clip show. It is one of these clip shows that the anime used to love doing. And thank goodness does not do anymore.
They still do.
I don't know. Maybe I don't watch that many modern anime, but any shows that I've done from like post 2006 on, I don't think I've ever seen any of them anymore. But but now we get to go to the way we go.
Like sand through the hourglass, this is the way that we go.
So my way we go is, and we might have talked about this briefly at some point, just off air, because I hate them. I hate clip shows. Why, and I guess that's sort of the nature of what it was like watching, week after week and not really having these VHS things until much later. And now we have DVD and streaming and things are getting released. It's easy to kind of follow back. So I think that's why we've seen these things kind of disappear. But I don't know, Bob, you're kind of more familiar with how that industry works, and you have an experience where you've seen these being used in more modern shows. Is this like a network thing where they're like, you got to put in the clip show because they're not going to remember? Or are the creatives like afraid that they're not going to remember? Because in a show like Gundam Wing, where you're already crushed for time and you're ripping out whole plot points and characters and backgrounds because you don't have enough room to fit it all in, you're going to sacrifice 2 episodes to a clip show of your own choice? I find that a little hard to believe. But I don't know. What do you know about what's going on over there and why they need to sort of do these things?
So I should be more clear. When I say they still do clip shows, I'm thinking more in terms of the live action special effects media that I watch, Tokusatsu.
Okay, I see.
My understanding is it is important to be able to present information in a way to not only in this weekly format be able to make sure that everybody's up to snuff, or if somebody's coming in midway, they can at least understand 1 or 2 plot points that might be more prominent. It's also to make sure that the information they wanted you to have on you as you go into the next point is with you in the way that they intended. So with an episode like this clip show, they're trying to make sure that we understand that there is an important relationship to be had between these 2 characters, which is still, I would say, nebulous at the moment.
Yeah.
There are some clear aspects. They both acknowledge each other to some degree or another. One is, I don't know who you are or why you keep getting in my way. The other is like, I want to get in your way to keep you alive. And that's the bulk of what we've gotten in context from having watched those episodes. But by giving us these specific scenes and having these 2 characters give their interpretations as they're happening simultaneously, I think that's supposed to set us up for an understanding of something that's going to be happening very shortly within the next few weeks. We also have to remember that we are now no longer in the day and age of the Saturday morning cartoon or any other type of commercial blocking for animated series here. Not in the way that we grew up with anyway. It used to be that you would use some of these scenes as ways to do your sizzle reels, is what we would call those. Things that really make you want to tune in. In America, we normally see sizzle reels being used for things like Entertainment Tonight or Inside Edition. You have somebody give you just a 2 or 3 sentence thing to really get you going. Relina and Hero are somehow interlinked. Find out why in the next episode of Gundam Wing. Something to that effect. Obviously, I pulled out of my ass. If I had copy, it would have been more smooth. But with having a clip show, you're able to give the actual important information rather than having to rely on people giving each other misinterpretations of what to be paying attention to. Like, instead of focusing on all the other things that happened in the previous 26 episodes, you just need to know for Hero, these are the very important moments. Keep these in mind. These are the Relina moments. Keep these in mind. So when we get to episode 29, episode 32, whenever, we have enough of this in the past month or so that we can then infer what we need to as we get to the episode where it will matter.
You know, I buy it all. I buy all what you're saying, and I totally believe that's what's going on in these writing rooms and in these board meetings at these, media companies. Why I don't like that, and why I'm glad that at least in anime we're kind of moving away from it, is because at best I think that motivation assumes that we are stupid and encourages passive viewing. And at worst, creates like this autocratic over control of your narrative and doesn't allow your audience to kind of engage with it on their own terms. So the more we can kind of weed a lot of that out and train people to read media, more actively and more empathetically, the better I think we're going to raise the next generation.
From a sociological and psychological standpoint, I agree. However, we're also talking about a piece of popular media. If we were talking about something like the Juniper Tree that starred one Bjork, or to talk about some of the films that you and I have shared with each other over the years, I would agree. But when it comes to popular media, only in the past, I'm not even going to believe the whole of it, but only in the past decade or so have we started to see people actually give credence to what is going on in a popular television series. Lost. Okay. I have only seen a handful of episodes of Lost. You've watched the whole series, right?
Yes.
Would you say that going into that series that the writers were full of shit and were pulling out story plot points left and right? Or do you think that they had a cohesive, meaningful story to be had from day one?
I think that they wrote their series the way I write a lot of my things, where you have like this sort of skeleton. I think they knew what each season wanted to be, and I think they knew what their end game was going to be, and I even think they knew what their kind of final sequence was going to be. The problem when you're working in a TV medium is your plans can't be perfect because your viewership is going to hate certain characters that you bring in. Your actors are going to age out of roles, especially when you've decided to a certain timeline. Contract disputes are going to come up. Writing strikes are going to happen. Like your network is going to make you do things based on certain media promotions they're trying to do or whatever. Like you can't, in television in particular, you can't sort of have your full control as you'd like. And I think they sort of roll with the punches the best that they could.
So I ask that because obviously Lost was becoming popular back 2005 or so.
Yes.
So a little more than a decade ago. I think nowadays, you can watch television series meant for anywhere from all ages to adults and in between that takes their plots and their storylines more sincerely than any time from 2000 back.
I actually, I still think television is still in a weird place, and it's still in the hands of, all these big spenders. Netflix and NBC and CBS and China, they all have a hands in saying what is going into our TV homes. And though we can feel like TV's taken a step forward towards movies, a little bit in its camera work it has, but overall in its story structures it hasn't. And there's still a level of like talking down to us. And there's still a level of ensuring very specific things are being imparted onto us, the audience. And there's still the expectation that we're only kind of passively watching anyway. My worry is when we talk about pop culture versus the Juniper Tree is we've normalized feeding everybody the media equivalent of a Big Mac and don't expect it to have any negative consequences as our society ages. when we should be trying to move away from that. And in television in particular, it's the hardest to do. Just because of how expensive it is to do these longer term projects. But in movies where it's a little more agile, we still are afraid to do it. In most regions of America, and America has made it very attractive to other nations because they see, their Hong Kong dollar signs in their eyes, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to make all that extra money too off their IPs.
So I do hear you. I'm thinking my wife, I think I mentioned it. I don't know if I mentioned it on or off air, but she's been watching Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
All right. Having sat down recently and watched one of the later seasons, especially some of the early seasons, pretty good. But overall, it definitely has a very deep formula in that it is formula only. It is not a formula that is deep.
Yep.
Very easily passive watch show.
Yep.
The production value, the application of the writing and everything else is seemingly so far behind what we have now comparatively in terms of dialogue, plot structure, and everything else. I mean, with a few exclusions like maybe MASH, because everybody seems to really think that MASH is one of the pinnacles of early television. And I feel like you would be one of those people that would say that.
Well, finish your point before I say what I think about MASH.
Interesting. I feel like, yes, the television that we have now, kind of Big Mac-y, but I think compared to having the double fried Big Mac of 1989, 1994, what have you, versus the modern Big Mac that is just a normal Big Mac, it's not healthy, but it's healthier than the prior.
Well, yes, I won't argue with that it's healthier, but I would then say that it's not healthier enough to make a noticeable difference. And so my problem with MASH, though I like it and watch it, and certainly appreciate what it did in its time, is that it's sort of what I'm talking about here. Like it has one very specific viewpoint that it wants to enforce on you. In that way, it is like propaganda. Why I like a show, even though it's a propaganda I agree with, I don't like it when the other side does it, so I'm not going to be okay with when my side does it, my side, quote unquote. Why I like a show like All in the Family more, aside from the fact that it was very important for allowing television to talk about like realistic problems and like a day-to-day life and like stuff that was happening in the world that never happened before. What I like about All in the Family is that it essentially it wants to sort of incite conversation and have you think on these things and not give you an easy answer because it understood that there wasn't. Sort of these racial issues and these gender issues and these trans issues and economic issues, religious issues, all these things. It never gave you the easy answer and didn't feel like it had to leave on a laugh. It could sort of leave you with like a guy's car bomb going off because he was Jewish and some neo-Nazis blew him up. And the bunkers are outside having to like watch that happen in real time. And then boom, you go to the credits. Like that show was not afraid to kind of be like, here are the problems in America. We need to realize that they're here. And we can take action accordingly. We're just 22-minute show. We're not experts at anything. We're just pointing out that they're there. It's time to start the conversation. And that is sort of how our democracy thrives. It's through conversation of all these different viewpoints. So that's what I would like more shows to do. Now, the Family isn't perfect in this regard. It has its own flaws because, again, it has to answer to sort of your CBS overlords. And that's why television has a harder time doing what movies can do. If you're doing a movie and you're willing to do it for $200,000, you can do these types of things. But when you become a slave to the dollar signs, like that's, when certain parties that have interests have to make sure certain things are getting across. That's my point. That's my rant. Well, where's your way we go here? Where did you go this week?
I made pancakes.
Here's how I do pancakes, Bob. It's very easy. 1 egg, 2 bananas. The end.
You do those modern protein banana pancakes. Yeah, I gotcha.
It's very convenient. I usually have bananas and eggs lying around if I'm in a pancake mood. Just whip them up right there.
Do you do anything do you add any spices or anything?
You don't need it. That's the beauty of the banana. I imagine that's why you're putting kind of the applesauce into it. That sounds like an interesting addition.
So I'm not doing it for flavor, surprisingly.
Okay.
It does add the tiniest hint of something. It's not like I'm using apple cider, which is a much more concentrated flavor. I actually incorporate whenever I do any of these mixes, whether I'm making it from scratch or if I'm buying from the store, I like to add cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice. I didn't do ginger this time.
Yeah.
But I've done it in the past. Surprisingly enough, I use the shake butter flavor that you can buy where you pick up your popcorn.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It adds the buttery flavor without having to take on the extra calories. So if I want something more buttery, I can do that. That's not to say that I don't use butter as my lubricant on my griddle, but I digress.
Sure, that's fine.
Well, I mean, it's
fun.
I switch it up every now and again. Sometimes I'll use vegetable oil or whatever. But the point being, it is definitely a thing that I know a lot of us are just like, okay, I don't cook, so I'm going to follow the box step for step.
Yeah.
Okay, mix, water, splat.
And you're saying you were experimenting this time.
Not this time. I experimented a time or two ago, and it worked out beautifully because I was trying to find a way to use up some applesauce I had sitting in the fridge from a while back, and I had a carton of yogurt that was almost going to run out, so I just used that because instead of having like buttermilk, whether you want to make your own or whatever, just using that yogurt, and then I didn't even have to add vanilla, which I will do if I don't do this method.
Yeah.
It gives enough of that light vanilla flavor in there. It's beautiful. But pro tip for those of you out there, if you haven't learned it yet, you don't have to beat out every chunklet that you see in your pancake mix. Keep it lumpy. You don't need it smooth. If you keep it lumpy, the moisture will find its way into the rest of the gluten-y powder stuff, and it's going to feel more like the pancakes you grew up with than whatever sadness comes out on your griddle.
All right. Well, there's a great recipe for you guys. One from each of us. You can pick and choose and tell us which recipe you prefer more when you email us at zakutalkcast@gmail.com. All right, Bob, let's take a trip over to the Nerd Corner.
Let's take a walk to the Nerd Corner, where we will talk about a lot of nerd stuff. Yeah.
I actually feel embarrassed. I feel like I'm very self-conscious now because my nerd corner isn't nerdy enough. I have like reverse nerd shame.
You say that.
Yeah.
I feel like you're going to bring up a sports thing, but guess what? There are sports nerds.
Not a sports thing. I know we need like speeb or like a word for them, like we were talking about. No, this one I've been sort of saving this for a rainy day because I sort of just started doing this at the beginning of the quarantine. Not because of the quarantine, it just sort of happened that way. Is this thing called like Soda Stream.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yes.
I'm jealous.
I'm a big fan of seltzer water. I like it a lot. It's like a special time treat for me. But it gets expensive. It makes a lot of plastic bottles in the way. And they don't have, in New England, we have Polar Water Cola. Like it's a company that's local there. It distributes in that northeast region. They don't come out here. So like the seltzer water I like is gone. The fun flavors is gone. And I've been making do with what's here. But then around the time of the beginning of the quarantine on that, I don't know, Let It Go website or something like that, where people are getting rid of stuff they don't want, this seltzer water and then was able to come into my possession. It's called Soda Stream. And you have some bottles that like hook up to it. You put in a CO2 tank. And then like you can make like 60 liters of water off that tank. You can then return the tank to one of the providers that will exchange it for another tank, saving money off of buying just sort of like a new tank. That way they recycle those things. But now you can add flavors to these things as well. They've made their own. They've recently paired up with Bubbly to provide even more flavors. And for people who are into colas and sodas and things like that, they have stuff for that too. If you want like a Coke knockoff or a Sprite or root beer or any of these other things, anything that's carbonated, they now have a flavor for it. Big fan, been using it nonstop. Have at least one seltzer a day during the quarantine. So it's been great. I recommend it. Okay, Bob, what do you have for this week?
This week, you know what? I'm going to promote a very neat individual, and hopefully she'll hear this down the line.
Yeah.
So there is this person that I started following a little while back on Twitter. I think her handle on there is Sheepy Cutie, but
like
she has a website called Sheepwave.
Okay.
And if you go to Sheepwave, she has proper 100% legal play test style proxies to put into your Magic the Gathering deck. It follows all the guidelines that Magic the Gathering has given to people who let people know that you can technically use certain styles of proxies so long as you meet these certain conditions. You can't sell anything that has any playtext or copyrighted symbols that they would have on their cards. And you just have to be able to make sure that the art is, something that you have sourced yourself or some way or another. That's the bulk of it. She did an extensive amount of research on trying to make sure that she was doing everything legally while doing her graphic design stuff. And she actually just recently had an episode that she guest starred on Spice 8 Rack, a well-known Magic the Gathering YouTuber. I just followed her on Patreon. I'm throwing her $15 for a couple of months, mostly because I want to get some of her really cool cards. She has these landscapes that are definitely viable to be played as mana, so long as people are cool with you using that as a proxy for the most common card in all of Magic history. But you get to have something that is new and original and for you. She's done vaporwave renditions of a playset of 4 different cards, including the Gitrog monster. Yeah, if you are a fan of Magic the Gathering and you want to support a artist who is trying to do well in her community, because she's also a solid rep for women and trans women in the Magic the Gathering community, something that needs more representation, if I might say. Go check her out, sheepwave.com, or find her on Twitter.
And that link will be below. But first, real quick, what did you say, Vaporwave?
Oh, do you not know Vaporwave?
I don't know what that is, no.
Oh, I always forget. You're a grandpa at heart. Okay. Vaporwave it started off as sort of a joke, a kind of meme of music that started turning into a visual art. And now it has become a whole scene, if you will. It likes to take visuals from the late 80s and early 90s back during the American bubble economy, and then going into like the proto-internet era of like AOL still being a thing. Yeah. It'll commonly use visuals that depict things like Echo the Dolphin and use music tabs from that. That was actually the start of people trying to make electronic music based on that. Somebody who at the time was going by the handle of Macintosh Plus, they made this one album, Floral Shop with 2 P's and an E. That was a big meme on 4chan and then spread out and actually inspired other people to make music based on this. There are a bunch of subgenres of it. More visual cues include things like the gridscape behind me, although I use a little more of the Outrun variant going on. There is a lot of use of Greco-Roman statues and ionic pillars and vector graphics, VHS filters, a lot of pastels. I'll throw you some visuals at some point, but for those of you who do know what Vaporwave is, feel free to bombard us with memes and or music videos so that my good friend Patrick Skeyhill can understand something that I'm surprised he wouldn't know, being in California, as that's one of the major epicenters of where a lot of the consumer capitalism was taking place during these eras.
Yeah, I've heard no one here talk or mention or display anything like that. But
you also don't know anything about like indie RPGs and stuff, so I can't hold it against you.
Okay, I just don't think most people know about those.
Well, now, if we end up having this on air, people will start looking into what indie RPGs they could start trying to play. That's true. That's what you've been an outspoken voice for the indie RPG community, so I'm sure they thank you for that. Just in the same way that I like to thank Lev Van Rensselaer for minding these audio boards today. And of course, we'd like to thank Bob Skerry for joining us this week, as he will each and every week this season. Bob, you got any plugs? Hey, hi, Worldwide Sentai. This is Bob Skerry VOA coming at you live from Zaku Talk headquarters. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and a slew of other places by my handle, Bob Skerry VOA. You can also find me at bobskerryvoa.com to listen to my various demos and other fun voice things that I'll do from time to time. Feel free to hire me. I am a voice actor. I'm looking for the work. I'm sure that you can find a place in your heart and in your wallet to take me under your wing. Lastly, you can also find me as a game dev. I have worked with a friend of mine on creating a system that is free to use for building your own source books. It's called Niche. You can find that at librarianpc.itch.io. You can also find my source book, the first in a 5-book line called Project Henshin Heroes. This first volume is called Prisma Paladins. It is based on certain adults in multicolored spandex. You can choose whichever thing you want to believe that is. But it is, at the moment, at the time of recording anyway, only $5. By the time you get to it, it might be $15 because there's a lot of really cool art in there. There's a lot of work that went into this. And if you ever want to play something where you could go and feel that power in yourself, you can certainly go and find it on bobscaryvoa.itch.io.
And I am your host, Patrick Kiley. You can find my features, documentaries, short films, video essays, animations, behind-the-scenes footage, and so much more at quixoticunited.com and social media, presumably with a similar sounding name. Thank you all for listening. Bob, tell the audience why you think you can fly.
I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Just spread my wings and fly away.
Almond shorts, Christmas show, March's wing, Homer's bro, Garden well, Flanders tails, whacking snakes, monorail, Mr. Plow, Homer's face, Sideshow Bob, steps on rakes, Lisa's future, Selma's hubby, March not proud, Homer chubby, Homer where his thought is gay, Gucci, U2, NRA, hippies, Vegas and Japan, our couplets, and Bart's boy band, Marge murmurs, Maud croaks, Lisa Buddhist, Homer totes, Jackie blows, burns away, what else do I have to say? We'll never stop the Simpsons. Have no fears, we got stories for years. Like Marge becomes a robot, Baby Mo gets a cell phone, as Bart ever owned the bear. Or about a crazy wedding where something happens and do-do-do-do-do. Sorry for the clip show. Have no fears, we got stories for